This week, the House of Representatives passed a resolution to block President Trump's emergency declaration at the border, and the Senate took steps to vote on the same measure. Since the president declared an emergency to build more barriers, many have questioned his power to do so. For a better understanding, we turn to Robert Glennon, a constitutional law expert and professor at the University of Arizona, James E. Rogers College of Law. We have had presidents declare national emergencies in the past.
Yes, often. And in fact, in 1976, Congress passed the National Emergencies Act, giving the president authority to do just that. And the problem is that in that act, Congress didn't define what an emergency was. So it's really wide open. And
even today, we don't have a clear definition?
Oh, absolutely, we do not.
Okay.
And so if you think about the fact that the president is the chief executive, is the commander-in-chief, and Congress has passed this sweeping law, and everyone admits there's a problem with the border. I mean, what kind of problem? How should we deal with it? It's a different thing, but there is a problem. I don't see a court overturning his decision that there's an emergency.
Under this declaration, if he says, I'm going to reallocate pots of money under the federal budget, and I'm the commander-in-chief, and I throw the military in, is he clear and free?
No. Oh, no, not at all.
Okay.
In addition to the statutory questions, the basic one is separation of powers. He's the executive, not the legislature. Okay. And under Article 1, it's Congress that appropriates money and tells the executive how to spend it. And there's a famous, iconic Supreme Court case from the 1950s. It involved President Truman, who tried to take over the steel industry. And the U.S. Supreme Court held that he could not because Congress hadn't authorized him to do so. And what has come from that is a sense of the president having three different pots of power. The broadest power is when Congress says, you have the authority to do this. In the middle is when Congress is silent. But where the president's power is at the lowest is if Congress has implicitly or explicitly said, you can't do this.
If this ends up in the courts, which it likely will, how's it likely to play out? I mean, when you just look at the Constitution and the legality of all this.
I think that there's a very powerful argument that what he's done is directly contrary to what the consensus agreement achieved. I mean, the Senate and the House fought long and hard over what to appropriate, how to protect the border. They made some decisions. He just doesn't like them. And I think the courts will be very protective of Congress.
Okay. Here in Arizona, if the president says we need areas of wall to be built on a border that happens to be owned by a private rancher, can that happen?
Yes.
Okay.
So the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution provides that private property shall not be taken for public use except upon payment of just compensation. So the first issue is it a public use? And yes, it is. It's border security. So that part's pretty clear. But the second part is just compensation. And if the two parties can't agree to an amount for what the property is worth, the private property owner has a right to a hearing. There's another wrinkle, though, Lorraine, here, which is really interesting, which is, of course, the Tohono O'odham reservation. Because there, I think 62 miles of the reservation of the nation are on the border, and Congress those tribal lands can't be taken away without congressional approval. Well, Congress and the House of Representatives is not going to approve that.
If it goes to the court, how is this likely to play out? Does it eventually make its way to the Supreme Court?
It could. I mean, there are a number of different lawsuits. One of them involves, I think, 16 states that are suing, claiming that they have grants or otherwise appropriations under various Department of Defense acts. And if he does this, they'll lose out on money. But that's kind of tautological, because if Congress has allowed him to declare an emergency, and if the border is an emergency, and they've let him move DOD funds around, the states don't really have much of a right to say, well, he can't do what Congress has authorized.
Do you suppose that following all this, we may have some sort of act that clearly defines what an emergency is?
Oh, yeah. I think already the members are looking at one another and saying, how did we ever let this kind of executive power be put in place?
Fair to say it sets a bad precedent for the future, though, for future
Well,
presidents?
I think, yes, well, for future Congresses. And I think that's what's troubling some of the Republicans who would otherwise like to support the president, which is they understand that there will be Democrats in the Oval Office, and if it's good for Mr. Trump, it's good for whomever.
Correct. Okay, Robert, thank you.
Pleasure to be with you.